Welcome back, Divas. Today's special guest. He is a special guest to me and to many of our listeners. State Senator Chevron Jones. He is fresh off the Democratic National Convention. We'll talk with him about President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, elections down in Miami-Dade County, and what we might see coming up in the 2025, that's right, 2025 legislative session. Stick with us, State Senator Chev Jones.
We can convey the message of what Democrats have been able to do or what Democrats have done in the White House and what we have been trying to accomplish in Tallahassee. It is absolutely making people look at the Republicans sideways because the Republicans have been in leadership for the past 25 plus years. And we're conveying that message to them. So when you look at high property insurance, when you look at high car insurance, when you look at the education system, when you look at the high cost of living in Florida, you can't look at the Democrats because we haven't been in charge. The Republicans have.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara Cam, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
State Senator Chev Jones. We all call him Chev. He calls himself Chev. That's okay. It's not an insult. Joining us hot off the DNC. Welcome back to Florida and welcome to Deeper Dive.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here with you.
We got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about the DNC. You're also, you still are, but correct me if I'm wrong, the chairman of the DEC in Miami-Dade County?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. So we got a lot to talk about, local, state, national politics. But first, let's talk about parks, because I actually went on the hunt for one of a story. I was working for the Palm Beach Post at the time, and my daughter lives in the St. Pete area. And Governor Rick Scott had an RV camping plan for Honeymoon Island State Park. The people showed up en masse to a meeting there with the pitchforks and torches. They were PO'd. Same thing that's going on right now. What's your take on the latest parks plan?
Yeah, I think that the people have all rights to be PO'd at this moment. Florida is known for our natural beauty, and the fact that the governor and the agency are looking at altering that for developers to build on for golf courses and hotels. I think it totally plays on who we are and why people come here to this state. I think there are places where people go if they want this big urban living. They can go to Miami, they can go to Orlando, they can go to Jacksonville, they can go to these areas. And not only that, if there's enough golf courses that's already been built, we don't need more golf courses. We need to maintain our natural resources. So I think I love this bipartisan outrage that exists right now. And I hope that people keep it up to push back on these type of policies that the agencies and governors that the governor is trying to force down our throats.
You mentioned bipartisan because we've seen some very prominent Republicans, Matt Gaetz, Rick Scott, Senator Marco Rubio, local Republican county commissioners, state representatives, Republicans and Democrats coming out, like really pushing back hard almost immediately on this. Are we reading too much into that? What can we read into that as we go into another legislative session?
Well, I've been doing this for 13 years now, and I would not read too much into it, but I will take a hint in one area, and that is that I believe that the legislature wants to get back to being an independent body, separate from the governor's office and their demands. Right? When I first got into the legislature, we were an independent body. I remember the days when the House pushed back on Governor Scott, or the Senate said hell no to the House and hell no to the governor's office, all at the same time. And so maybe we're moving into that, but I'm just not convinced just yet, only because we've seen extremism for 4 years now, and all of it has been that both chambers marching to the beat of the drum of the governor's office. So until I see different during session or in committee week, then I would change my stance. But as of right now, I wouldn't look too much into it, but it does perk me up.
It's a little refreshing to see. I mean, just as somebody who's been writing stories about the amount of power that Governor DeSantis has amassed, we talk a lot about checks and balances that the different branches of government are intended to have on each other. I've had Republicans on here talking about how they feel like that's a necessary component of a functioning democracy. I was a little surprised to see how heavily so many of them pushed back. Now, those plans are not completely off the table yet. What do you predict is going to happen? Do you knowing the governor and his staff and how they kind of operate, do you think they're going to drop these plans permanently or not?
Now, I would hope that they drop the plans permanently, but the only follow-up that I've seen is that one of the developers who were going to be doing one of the projects, that they backed out of doing the project. It probably was because of the backlash that they probably got from some of their other clients. And I don't think they're going to back off right now. I think they're going to try to do it in a more underhanded way that's secretive, because we've known the governor's office to do that, to where they might see all of this outrage that's happening, but they still do what they want to do. Which fear? That's the fear that I have.
Well, we'll be watching that. I know I got a press release from your campaign on that issue,
Yes.
I think recently. So I know you'll be watching that. All right, let's shift to the Democratic National Convention. What was your favorite part?
Oh man, I don't even know where to start. The camaraderie was amazing, but my favorite part of that evening was Michelle Obama's speech, Hillary Clinton's speech, and Vice President Harris's speech. I wish I could just give you one, but those were three highlights of my time there. Hillary Clinton, who set a very firm foundation of where we've come from, gave the history of why it's important for us to support women in this moment, and the history of how and what women have done to get us to this place. Then you have Michelle Obama to bring the reminder to us of what we've experienced and what it would look like with another Trump's term as president. And then you had Kamala Harris to talk about how she has been a partner to the president in all of these successes that we see right now in this country. The 15 plus million jobs, the dollars to the HBCUs, the maintaining of the Affordable Care Act with the Congress that we have. She was able to give what and how she has been a part of this, a partner with the president in all of these successes that we're seeing in the country right now, and what the vision looked like moving forward.
I listened to all of those speeches, strong, powerful women. As a woman myself, I enjoyed seeing those figures on stage in the spotlight. What was the biggest surprise for you coming out of the convention or while you were there?
Where Florida was sitting.
Oh, the nosebleed seats. Tell us about that.
Our seats were pretty far.
Yeah.
They were pretty far. This was my first convention, so I don't know.
Oh, really?
So I don't know how it was in years past, but that was very interesting to see.
Yeah. Did it put a damper on y'all's enthusiasm?
No, people were still excited. Some people went to go sit with some other states. Like, I went to go sit with some of my friends. On the floor,
your iPhone couldn't take pictures from where you were. You needed to get a little closer.
I wanted to see it up close and personal.
Right.
It was great. It didn't change people's spirit. Everyone was still happy to be there.
What happened with the Beyoncé rumors? Was that just, did that fall through? Do you know with the backstory on that?
I don't know the backstory about it, but I can tell you, starting that rumor, it sure packed that room out.
Yeah.
It sure packed that room out.
I guess that's one way of getting people to pay attention, right?
Yes, you're right. It was a great strategy.
Well, what impact, if any, do you think that the Kamala Walz ticket will have on down ballot races in Florida as somebody who's involved in those as a DEC member down in Miami-Dade?
Yeah, top of the ticket always play a role in down ballot races. Top of the ticket can be a draw, and it only can enhance those down ballot races. Now, granted, down ballot races have to do their due diligence and making sure that they're doing their groundwork to make it happen. But yeah, I think having the vice president and Governor Walz at the top of the ticket, it was a good change, and the change has brought about enthusiasm that I keep telling people that reminds me of 2008 all over again.
That was when
The
Obama ran the first time.
Yeah, that's right. The enthusiasm at the rallies and the enthusiasm of people creating their own coalitions and creating their own events to engage people.
The cat ladies and the
Cat ladies, black men who in Miami just this weekend they did black men win tailgate, which was packed. If you give people something to vote for, not something to vote against, people would create their own space to join in on not just camaraderie, but to join in on the enthusiasm. People believe that this helps all of us, right? And so you want people to feel into that enthusiasm and create their own spaces where people can feel welcome, whatever that look like, whether it's black women for Kamala, if it's black men, white dudes, all of this stuff is creating
Right.
enthusiasm.
Well, you were a surrogate for President Biden's campaign in Florida, right?
Yes, still am.
For the Harris-Walz campaign now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with Rich Templin a couple weeks ago about the impact, and he said it kind of screwed up his strategy for campaigns because they were trying to do like bottom-up targeting, I guess maybe would be a good way of putting it. Tell me a little bit, and I know lots of people have talked about this and written about it, but you're just coming from the DNC. Tell me the contrast, Biden, Harris, for you. What's
Yeah.
it like? We are out there talking to people. Give me an idea.
Well, I mean, listen, the biggest thing that people they speak of when they speak about the president, they automatically went to his age. They couldn't speak about his record because the president has been very transformative in how he entered into saving this nation. Because he literally, while he was campaigning 4 years ago, he made it clear what his objective was. What his objective was to restore the soul of this nation. That was to bring the nation back from this place of doom and gloom that existed under 4 years of Donald Trump. You know, the economy was at its lowest. The job market was at its lowest. We had communities that were fighting against each other and were hoping for funding. And then we got President Biden, and he turned all of this around, even with what was given to him. And you look at the contrast that you have now with Vice President Harris and the president now. I think it's the only contrast that we can ensure is the fact that both President Biden and Vice President Harris both have been on this trail, on this mark, and ensuring that we continue restoring the soul of this nation and keeping on the thread of the economy, keeping on the thread of how we are putting people back to work and how we are putting communities back to work, how we are ensuring that healthcare amongst Americans is affordable, whether it's diabetes. Look at what the president just did with that. Vice President Harris has been a partner with him in that. So, I mean, all of these.
I'm someone who has type 1 diabetes. I don't know if you remember that. As somebody who takes insulin, has been taking insulin for over 40 years, I can tell you it is a very expensive drug for people who do not have insurance.
People should not have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to pay for their health care.
Do you know how much when one of my insurance companies, my company that I work for changed insurance companies, the insulin that I take, if I had to pay for it out of pocket, would have been about $980 a month.
See, that's insane.
It is insane.
That's absolutely insane. You shouldn't have to pay that much to be able to be healthy.
I would die without it.
Yeah. Just to live.
Yeah.
Just to live.
Anyway, little side note, but when you're talking about diabetes to people on the trail, you can use that. So your enthusiasm level.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was always excited.
You were. I mean, I talked to you. I heard you talking about.
I was always excited because listen, I cried when the president spoke. Because I have a relationship with him. I have a personal relationship with the president, and he's been good to me. He's offered me opportunities to go across the country to speak on his behalf, and he appointed me to his HBCU advisory board. I have never had a relationship with the leader of the free world in that manner, right? And to see him give that speech, I was more sad by how people treated him to get him out of the race, right? I thought people could have been just a tad bit more gentle.
Do you think that would have worked? I mean, my understanding is he's a stubborn, older Irish guy, and it was not just no, but hell no. He didn't want to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no too. If people were, people, your only reason for me to leave was just the fact that I'm too old. You knew how old I was going to be when I ran the first time in 4 years.
So, as somebody who is close to the president, knows him personally, how did you feel when you watched that debate?
Well, man, listen, I think there was a slow start. I think you're right. I think it was a slow start at the beginning, but the president was still able to talk about his successes. The president was still able to convey a message to the American people. I mean, we sat there and listened to Donald Trump lie. I don't even know how many times he did, yeah, but the president was still able to convey a message. Granted, I will admit it was a very, very slow start, but the president got his footing towards the end, and while battling a cold,
Hmm.
he still got the job done. And listen, I don't know what people were expecting at that time, because I think we walked into this knowing who the president was. We knew that the president, I mean, that he was up in age. We understood that he has changed, his voice has changed, and his demeanor has changed because he's gotten older. And he never shied away from that. He made that clear at the end of the debate. I did realize that by the time the next debate come, they're going to have to do it just a tad bit more prep. I didn't think it warranted this whole outrage for them to kick him out.
Do you think he should have stayed in the race?
I think the president made the best decision that he and his family came up with. And I think we have Vice President Harris who has changed the trajectory. If we can go back, I mean, I think the president still would have made the same decision. The president that I know, he will think about the country over himself, and that's what he did.
That's what he said. That is
Yeah.
that is what he said. So, tell me about the primary elections in Florida. Who do you think were the biggest winners and losers in the primary elections?
The biggest winners in the primary election. Hey, you know what? I got to give it to Mayor Daniela Levine Cava was the biggest winner.
Hmm.
I mean, you had a Democrat who ran and got crossover from Republicans. You can't take that away from her.
She's
She
the
did that.
mayor of Miami-Dade County, and she was able to hold on to her position and
Mhm.
no runoffs either, right? Because you have
No runoff.
runoffs down in Miami-Dade.
That's right. She will have no runoff. That was absolutely amazing. Losers, the young lady who ran against Angie Nixon.
Oh, right.
She lost for good reasons too. Angie is an absolute badass. She deserves to be in the legislature. She speaks up for people. Yeah, she is the biggest loser. Who her opponent was, because if you agree, her opponent only ran against her because Republicans encouraged her to, which is not a reason to run. And I'm happy that Angie won.
Okay. Well, she has been on the show before when she had that picture behind where she was standing behind Governor DeSantis and she was
Oh
giving him the side eye. We had her on the show after that. Are you having trouble in Florida still with raising money or at all raising money from out of state donors? The million voter advantage now by Republicans, it keeps growing. Thoughts on what your strategy is to put Florida back in play, or tell me why Florida is still in play?
Ground game, ground game, ground game, ground game. Listen, I think where money can't take you, ground game will. And that's where Nikki and the local DECs have focused their attention. I know that's where we have focused our attention in the Miami-Dade DEC. We have focused our attention on building a strong ground game because we know that it's probably one of the most least expensive things that we can do, and that's putting people at the door through volunteers. Volunteers can only take us so far, and I think we realize that. I also think that we have come to a place to where donors have just a tad bit of burnout because they have been given and they are focused on the presidential. But then you also have those donors who are given to local DECs because they realize that down ballots are just important to help with voter turnout. So I think we're seeing mixed signals in what that looks like, right? You have some of these donors who are giving to help, but then you have those who are not giving. The National Democratic Party, I know people are saying that the National Party is not playing in Florida. The National Party is absolutely playing in Florida, and they want to see Florida succeed. And I get it. They have to prioritize. What's the polls showing? Because that's all they have to work with. And while they're working with just the polls, we're working with the people here in Florida, and so we know what's actually happening on the ground. We know the work that's being done. So when we say Florida is in play, whether that's Florida is in play in 2024 or whether
Mhm.
Florida is in play in 2026, Florida is absolutely in play because we're seeing those numbers creeping up as we speak.
What about the constitutional amendments? There's one that would legalize marijuana and recreational marijuana, and the other one that would enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution. What are you hearing while you're out and about? The Amendment 4, the abortion proposal, is drawing some national money.
The constitutional amendments are going to play a role in turnout. The women's reproductive health will absolutely play a role in voter turnout for women. And I think the legalization of recreational marijuana on the ballot, Amendment 3, will play a role also for young people.
Yeah, the governor's got these two committees. He's raising a pile of money
Mm.
to fight them, 60%, kind of a high threshold. If the abortion amendment fails, Governor DeSantis can say, I'm the only Republican governor who was able to kill an abortion amendment. So a
Yeah.
little bit risky for Democrats, isn't it?
I don't think he's going to be saying that because when you have the Amendment 4 polling over 65%, I think that's pretty massive.
You've got a key race in the Senate, pretty much the only true contest with Darryl Parks,
Yep.
trial lawyer Darryl Parks. I've known him for many years, running against Corey Simon, two very
Yeah.
popular figures in the Tallahassee area. Any predictions on that race?
If I was Corey Simon, I would be worried only because I think turnout is going to be massive. And if Darryl is playing his cards right, which I think he is, communicating with those Democratic voters within his area to ensure that they don't cross over to vote for Corey Simon is going to be extremely important because uneducated voters can walk in there and not realize that they're voting for a Republican who votes against their interests, their true interests in what helps their community, especially the community what we're talking about. That's a very large Black community,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're going to have to educate those voters on what it is, so people know who and what they're voting for.
And especially in some of these rural areas, because
Right.
this seat has changed. So
That's right.
I think
That's right.
that's part of what happened with Lorianne Osley in some of the
That's
outlying
right.
areas.
Also, if I was Darryl, I would be working very closely with Allison Tan.
She's very popular, isn't she?
Very
In
popular in
the
the area, and I will work closely with her because those votes, those people who are crossover votes, I mean, those she can help Darryl.
You've been doing politics for a minute. You said you've been in the legislature for 13 years. We
Yeah.
could go down a laundry list of all the things that have happened over the past few years.
Yeah.
Of all of the things that have gone on, school books, African American studies, transgender treatment, the list goes on and on, the climate change, rewriting climate change out of the statutes. What's
Yeah.
the most WTF to you? What is the thing that kind of gets to you the most out of what's been going on in the past few years?
The culture wars. It just sucked all of the air out of the legislature. You had members, I'll never forget that year that we did parental rights and education, colloquially, don't say gay. When that happened, I'll never forget on that signing die. That year was so heavy. Not many senators waited around for the handkerchief drop. They were drained.
Mm.
Democrats and Republicans. I mean, Republicans did what had to do, but many of them, yeah, you talk to them, they're like, listen, that probably was my worst year, that my worst session, and they'll tell you. I spoke with many of them. They didn't like it. They went along with get along, but I think that probably was it. In 2 years ago, dealing with those culture wars because you dealt with parental rights and education and Stop Woke Act all at the same time.
Right. So it was race and the way that we can talk about race in schools.
Mhm.
You're
Yep.
a former educator, so
Yep. Yep.
I can imagine. What's your biggest challenge down there as the head of the DEC in Miami-Dade County? Republicans have made a lot of inroads. I think it was in 2020 when the two Democratic congresswomen were voted out of office, Debbie I'm going to mispronounce her name because I never can pronounce it properly.
Mercosur.
Mercosur. Okay, Mercosur Powell. She was in office for one term. Donna Shalala was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, some Senate seats were, state
Mm-hmm.
Senate seats were
Yep.
flipped. This socialist brand really worked for Hispanic voters down there, and low turnout also
Mm-hmm.
contributed to those seats being flipped. That's all sort of a background for our listeners for what your biggest challenge is to either prevent that from those kinds of things from happening, or what's your biggest challenge down there?
I think the biggest challenge that we will deal with right now will be not just turnout. It would be giving the message of what we can deliver for Floridians and how we get that message out to those people, right? Because if we can convey the message of what Democrats have been able to do or what Democrats have done in the White House and what we have been trying to accomplish in Tallahassee, it is absolutely making people look at the Republicans sideways, because the Republicans have been in leadership for the past 25 plus years. And we're conveying that message to them. So when you look at high property insurance, when you look at high car insurance, when you look at the education system, when you look at the high cost of living in Florida, you can't look at the Democrats because we haven't been in charge. The Republicans have. The same individuals who wants to set the state on fire to say that this is, all of this is on fire, where they created the fire. They are the arsenals of all of this, right?
Right.
And so I think the biggest thing that we're conveying down here in Miami-Dade County is that, listen, we carry the message of hope. We carry the message of making sure that what's in your pocketbooks in your pockets stays in your pocketbook in your pocket, and we add into that, not taking away from it. And that message has been working. So in a way where people can absolutely understand it. And I think that's what we have to do. You have to convey a message to people that fits them, where they can feel as if it's for them.
It's pocketbook issues still, always pocketbook issues, right?
You have to. That's
This
what it
condo issue, I had Representative Vicky Lopez on to talk about the condo. It's a big deal. It is a big deal down there. Senate President Pasadomo said you're not going to have a special session on that issue. Let's talk about the 2025 legislative session. Do you think you guys are going to come back and tackle that at all?
Have to. There's no way we can't. I mean, I represent in a condo district, and the residents are up in arms. There is no way we can go through the legislative session and not attack the issue. It'll be malpractice.
So what do you think you guys will do?
I think the Senate president was right not to call for a special session right now, because the law just went into effect. And so we need to see what needs to be changed, right? I think we have an idea of what the things that need to be changed. And even with the idea of what those things need to be changed, we need to have enough information to change it.
I mean, part of it is the people saying, like, I'm living here now. Why do I need to be paying for a new roof for people who are going to be living here in 25 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there is a world to where all of those concerns that people have are at play and are being taken into consideration as we speak. I know our office is are taking in all of those information, and also looking at and talking to what those solutions might look like with individuals who've been spearheading that. Senator Pizzo, Senator Bradley,
right.
Representative Lopez. They have been the champions in that area, and we will work alongside them, because this has been their baby for a long time.
Right. And I should have mentioned Senator Pizzo. I know he was very involved after Surfside. And Senator Bradley was the co-sponsor of the bill too. Just a few quick questions. Did you get any swag from the DNC?
You know what? If my mom heard that question, she would probably be so upset with me. I did not. I didn't buy any swag.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I mean, don't make me feel bad. I absolutely forgot.
All right.
There will be other opportunities.
I'm sure you'll have a chance. We'll have to send you do work for the campaign. So, I mean, you are a surrogate for the campaign. So there might be a way that you can get the goods there. I know you're a busy man. I want to ask you, what do you do to turn off I don't respond. I try really hard not to respond to emails on the weekend. I know you can't do that because you're in the middle of the election season and whatnot.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, this is just something that I've started in the past couple of months. So what do you do? What do you do? What do you do in your downtime, if you have any? What do you do to decompress?
So I like after this call, after we finish this, I'm going to go spend 30 minutes by myself. I enjoy just listening, putting on my headphones and listening to some music and just kind of zenning out for a few minutes. But to spend time myself, I enjoy working out. It's a when I don't work out, I have a very tough day.
What's on your playlist? When you go and put your headphones on, what are you going to be listening to? I'll tell you, I right now on my Spotify am listening to Obama's 2024 summer playlist.
Okay, look at you.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. So my
You're
nephew
going to have to one up me on that one.
No, well, I don't know. Listen, I can't one up you on that. Now, my nephews have they have introduced me to a couple of new artists. One of the artists that I'm listening to now, his name is Sir, SIR.
Okay.
He's pretty good. I mean, I enjoy like this new school R&B music,
Mhm.
so he's good. Snow Allegra is probably one of my good favorite artists to listen to. And there's a young lady named Tems, Tems.
Okay.
She's also good. So those are some of the music that I'm listening to.
You need to have young people in your life to turn you on to new music. That's one of the
That's
things
right.
I lack.
And that's why I have nephews like that.
Is there anything you'd like to add to our listeners before we say goodbye?
I just hope that the listeners understand how important it is for them to be on the field in this moment. I don't care what your party is. You go hard for your party, but also remember that democracy is on the line right now as we speak. And I don't care what your party is. I think when we are fighting for democracy and make sure we maintain it, it is important that we all take a serious look at who will lead to maintain
Okay.
to hold up
So
to it.
I lied with that answer. Now I have one more question. What does
Ask.
that mean? What does that mean to you? What does it mean for democracy to be on the line? That's such a nebula. I hear that a lot. And for some
Yeah.
people, that let's make it real for people.
When you are trying to restrict the rights of individuals, when you are trying to change the course of what it looks like for individuals to be able to participate in this democratic process, when you are trying to change the trajectory of precedent that since our founding fathers, and anyone who's trying to alter that, those are individuals who are not champions of democracy. Democracy is being able to hold on to the values in which we've been built on. And moving outside or away from that is a problem. Even look at what's happening in Florida with our election process. When you're trying to make it difficult for people to vote, that's interfering with democracy. Or when you're trying to, or when the former president is trying to muster up people, trying to get people worked up because he knows he's about to lose an election, and he's saying that if they steal the election, that I mean, if he loses the election was stolen. That's interfering with democracy. No one has ever done that before.
Not accepting the outcome of an election.
No, right. Or January 6th.
Yeah.
That's interference with democracy. People have to understand. I don't care what your party is. Anybody who is altering how we move as a country. I mean, you have other countries who look at us for guidance. But now we're trying to change the very fabric of our country. Interfering with democracy is including all those things and what I just made mention of.
Senator Chevron Jones. Chev, thank you very much for joining us on a Deeper Dive today. I can't wait to have you back after the legislative session.
I can't wait. Let's do it.
Bye-bye, my friend.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam, and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC. To tell us what you like to hear, what you've thought about the podcast so far, or even just to mention how awesome we are, we have a new email address and we'd love to hear from you.
That's right. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcasts with an S at e.newsserviceflorida e.newserviceflorida.com. I know it's a mouthful, but it's podcasts with an S at e.newserviceflorida.com.